Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening from wherever you're watching or listening. My name is Caleb Glick. I'm a certified paralegal here in the great state of Texas with the Calhoun School of Law to bring you a lot of information plenty of bad folks would rather you not have. Today we're just going to be continuing our series on the Federalist Papers, going to Federalist Paper number 2. And of course, it's important to know this document, to read through these documents, rather documents, not document a single, it's multiple documents. But it's important to go through these documents because they are the pretext, they are discussion, they are the understanding of the U.S. Constitution as purported and demonstrated by the founders who actually wrote the U.S. Constitution. So knowing these will be supplementary and very beneficial in getting a complete and total understanding of the U.S. Constitution. Now, before we continue on the series, I'm excited to announce I've published my first novel titled Lawfare, Abolish the American Bar Association. If you're curious about the foundational reasons for the Calhoun School of Law, as well as who the deep state actually is, go ahead and pick up a copy of the novel because it explains at great detail how the titular organization, the American Bar Association, best fits that title rather than these other agencies and organizations we tend to correlate with being the deep state. So if you're curious and having either of those questions answered, get you a copy off of Amazon. It's available in paper, digital, and hardcover. Excellent. So let's go ahead and jump over to the Federalist Papers. We're just going to be continuing off of where we left, or continuing from where we left off, there we go, in the first lecture on Federalist number 1. So we're starting this lecture, Federalist number 2, written by Mr. John Jay. He titled it Concerning Dangers from Foreign Force and Influence. And if you'd like to get your own copy, this copy that I'm using is provided by the Federalist Papers Project. Go get you a copy. Okay. So this is from John Jay, Wednesday in the Independent Journal, Wednesday, October 31st, 1787. To the people of the state of New York, when the people of America reflect that they are now called upon to decide a question, the people of America can't be a people of America when it's a union. America is a union as detailed, as specified in Hamilton in Federalist Paper number 1. You can't be a citizen or you don't have an identity from a union, just like we don't have an identity from the United Nations. You don't have an identity from the United States. You're a citizen of your state, and that state is a member of the American Union. Called upon to decide a question which in its consequences must prove one of the most important that ever engaged their attention, the propriety of their taking a very comprehensive as well as a very serious view of it will be evident. Nothing is more certain than the indispensable necessity of government, and it is equally undeniable that whenever and however it is instituted, the people must cede to it some of their natural rights in order to vest it with requisite powers. It is well worthy of consideration, therefore, whether it would conduce more to the interest of the people of America. Again, can't be a people of a union, can only be a people of a state who are associates to the union. That they should, to all general purposes, be one nation. A nation and a union are not synonymous. Is it a nation or is it a union? Hamilton said union, but then he tried to conflate it with nation and country. It's either a nation or it's a union. The U.S. Constitution ultimately says union, and it says it multiple times. Under one federal government. That's kind of ironic, saying one in federal, that's an oxymoron. A federal government is one comprised of multiple different governments. It's a federation. Anyway, or that they should divide themselves into separate confederacies and give to it the head of each the same kind of powers which they are advised to place in one national government. Again, is it a national government or is it a union government? It can't be both simultaneously. It has until lately been received an uncontradicted opinion that the prosperity of the people of America, again, can't be, don't have the identity from a union, depended on their continuing firmly united, and the wishes, prayers, and efforts of our best and wisest citizens have been constantly directed to that object. But politicians now appear who insist that this opinion is erroneous, and that instead of looking for safety and happiness in union, we ought to seek it in a division of the states into distinct confederacies or sovereignties. The irony is, even Madison, you'll see in the future papers, said no. In fact, the states right now are sovereign, right now are unique, right now are independent, and are giving a very, very, very minute list of powers to this central government, to this union government. They are, in fact, still independent, sovereign states. You'll see that in the future papers written by Madison. So no, this isn't a division to states. It is states actually coming together. It's the opposite of what John Jay is saying here. Into distinct confederacies or sovereignties, they already are. However extraordinary this new doctrine, it's not new. It's the foundation. It's the establishment. It's how it started. It's how it is. May appear, it nevertheless has its advocates. Yes, everybody in the states. And certain characters who are much opposed to it formerly. No, that's how it is built. That's how it's understood by virtually every other founder except John Jay and Hamilton, are at present of the number. Whatever may be the arguments or inducements which have wrought this change, there wasn't a change in the sentiments and declarations of these gentlemen. It certainly would not be wise in the people at large to adopt these new political tenets. They're not new, they are the original, they are the foundational political tenets, foundational governmental tenets, without being fully convinced that they are founded in truth and sound policy, which they are. The states are naturally and initially and as of now sovereign and unique and independent. The Union was formed exclusively for their benefit, so if the Union doesn't benefit the states, then there's no point in the states remaining in the Union. Again, you're going to see that in the future Federalist Papers. It has often given me pleasure to observe that independent America, I don't know why he's calling it America, it's the United States of America, it's not just an America, it is the United States, plural, United States of America, was not composed of detached and distant territories. Yes, it is. But that one connected? No, not at all. Fertile, widespreading country. You can't have a union in a country at the same time. He's either lying or incompetent, because you can't have a country and a union at the same time. Was the portion of our Western Sons of Liberty. Providence has in a particular manner blessed it with a variety of soils and productions, and watered it with innumerable streams for the delight and accommodation of its inhabitants. A succession of navigable waters forms a kind of chain round its borders, as if to bind it together, while the most noble rivers in the world, running at convenient distances, present them with highways for the easy communication of friendly aids and the mutual transportation and exchange of their various commodities. With equal pleasure, I have as often taken notice that Providence has been pleased to give this one connected country. Is it a country or is it a union? The Constitution says union, so this, again, he's either incompetent or he's lying. To one united people. Nope, it's not a united people. It is individual, unique, sovereign states. Again, this is ad nauseum reiterated by the founders. It is unique, individual, sovereign states forming a union to exercise very, very, very few and certain powers. They are not becoming a people. Like, always remember that Thomas Jefferson, George Washington, and James Madison, Madison being the author of the Constitution, died as Virginians, not as Americans. It is not a one united people. A people descended from the same ancestors, speaking the same language, professing the same religion. I don't know about that one. That one's a little far-fetched. Attached to the same principles of government, very similar in their manners and customs, and who, by their joint counsels, arms, and efforts, fighting side by side throughout a long and bloody war, have nobly established general liberty and independence. How ironic to say your ancestors and these founders fought a long and bloody war for independence, and then you declare, by the way, we are now all united under this singular country. No, not remotely. Not at all. This country, not a country, it's a union, and this people seem to have been made for each other, and it appears as if it was the design of Providence, that an inheritance so proper and convenient for a band of brethren united to each other by the strongest ties should never be split into a number of unsocial, jealous, and alien sovereignties. It's not splitting, that's how it is, that's how it was. This is, he is either completely, I'm going to keep saying it throughout this entire passage, throughout this entire paper, he is either completely unaware of what everybody else thought, so he was completely disconnected, or he's intentionally being deceitful and manipulative. I haven't done enough research into John Jay to make a determination if he's being manipulative and wicked, or if he's just genuinely ignorant and vaguely incompetent, because what he's saying here isn't remotely what's understood by individuals like Thomas Jefferson, like James Madison, like George Washington, like Aaron Burr, like Patrick Henry, like Paul Revere, like all of these other, John Dickinson, like and George Mason. I could just continue the list on and on of I beg your pardon, but what these founders believed to be this union, not this country. Okay, so it's not splitting, it's how it started. This union is the coming together. It's not advocating against this union is not splitting. The states are already unique individual sovereign states. They are coming together to willfully surrender, not perpetually, by the way, on condition, certain very specific powers to this central authority to conduct as their representative. Similar sentiments have hitherto prevailed among all orders and denominations of men among us. To all general purposes, we have uniformly been one people, each individual citizen everywhere enjoying the same national rights. Good grief. Privileges and protection. That is not remotely true. Each state has its own declaration of citizens. A citizen of New York is not a citizen of Texas and is in fact not guaranteed, well, by the U.S. Constitution they are protected, but in the Texas Constitution are not protected. Well, given that they are New York citizens, they are not Texas citizens, correct? So they are not guaranteed the same rights that Texas citizens agreed to through the Texas Constitution. So no, a New Yorker is not a Texan, and a Texan is not a Missourian. We are not a united body of national rights, privileges, and protection. No, not at all. If that were true, that would actually mean states like California wouldn't be able to have sanctuary cities or gun control, in quotes, and states like Texas, let's see, what would Texas not be able to have? Well, the point being, if it is a unified body of of citizens under one national government, they would have to all comply with the U.S. Constitution, which means states like California wouldn't be able to have its gun restriction laws. Anyway, I digress. As a nation, again, you can't have a nation and a union at the same time. It's one or the other. We have made peace and war. As a nation, we have vanquished our common enemies. As a nation, we have formed alliances and made treaties and entered into various compacts and conventions with foreign states. A strong sense of the value and blessings of union. Is it a union or is it a country? Induce the people at a very early period to institute a federal government to preserve and perpetuate it. They formed it almost as soon as they had a political existence, nay, at a time when their habitations were in flames, when many of their citizens were bleeding, and when the progress of hostility and desolation left little room for those calm and mature inquiries and reflections which must ever precede the formation of a wise and well-balanced government for a free people. It is not to be wondered at that a government instituted in times so inauspicious should on experiment be found greatly deficient and inadequate to the purpose it was intended to answer. And to this Patrick Henry said, if this government we have now, the Articles of the Confederation, is so deficient as proclaimed by Madison, Jay, and Hamilton, how in the world did it get us through beating the greatest empire at the time? If the Articles of the Confederation were so insufficient, were so pathetic, were so ineffective, how in the world did it govern a body of people so effectively as to, with severely disadvantageous circumstances, best the greatest empire standing at the time the document was in force, standing at the time that the government was actually installed? If the Articles of the Confederation can take on and best the British Empire at its peak, how in the world could it not govern 13 colonies, now 13 states, in a time of peace? It doesn't make sense. Let's see, I think we just read through that, didn't we? Yeah, deficient and inadequate to the purpose it was intended to answer. This intelligent people perceived and regretted these defects. Still continuing no less attached to union than enamored of liberty, they observed the danger which immediately threatened the former and more remotely the latter. And being persuaded that ample security for both could only be found in a national government. Oh, so is it? Are we currently a national government as of the time of this writing, Mr. John Jay, or are we a union government? Are you trying to get us into a national government or into a union government? This individual, again, is either lying or has no idea what he's talking about, because it can't be a national government and a union government. Either you have a union between completely independent and sovereign states, or you have a national unitary government. You can't have both. More wisely framed, they, as with one voice, convened the late convention at Philadelphia to take that important subject under consideration. This convention, composed of men who possessed the confidence of the people and many of whom had become highly distinguished by their patriotism, virtue, and wisdom, in times which tried the minds and hearts of men, undertook the arduous task. In the mild season of peace, with minds unoccupied by other subjects, they passed many months in cold, uninterrupted, and daily consultation. Yeah, he leaves out the fact that the windows were boarded up and they were sworn to secrecy. Talk about a representative government, right? Yeah, really trustworthy, really transparent. And finally, without having been awed by power or influenced by any passions except love for their country. Golly, what a pantheon. These are demigods of men. Yeah, love of their country. Is it a union? Is it a nation? Is it a country? You gotta decide, Mr. J. They presented and recommended to the people the plan produced by their joint and very unanimous councils, not remotely true. 70 delegates were called, only 55 showed up to the Philadelphia Convention, only 39 voted to ratify it. They did not even remotely reach unanimous. They barely reached over half agreeing to ratify the U.S. Constitution. They did not. That is an outright lie. They did not unanimously agree to ratify the U.S. Constitution. Admit, for so is the fact that this plan is only recommended, not imposed, yet let it be remembered that it is neither recommended to blind approbation nor to blind reprobation, but to that sedate and candid consideration which the magnitude and importance of the subject demand, and which it certainly ought to receive. But this, as was remarked in the foregoing number of this paper, is more to be wished than expected, that it may be so considered and examined. Experience on a former occasion teaches us not to be too sanguine in such hopes. It is not yet forgotten that well-grounded apprehensions of imminent danger induce the people of America, naughty people of America, to form the memorable Congress of 1774. That body recommended certain measures to their constituents, and the event proved their wisdom. Yet it is fresh in our memories how soon the press began to teem with pamphlets and weekly papers against those very measures. Not only many of the officers of government who obeyed the dictates of personal interest, but others from a mistaken estimate of consequences or the undue influence of former attachments, or whose ambition aimed at objects which did not correspond with the public good, were indefatigable in their efforts to persuade the people to reject the advice of their patriotic Congress. Many, indeed, were deceived and deluded, but the great majority of the people reasoned and decided judiciously, and happy they are in reflecting that they did so. So that's ironic. He told two little fibs there. Well, not two little fibs. One, it was not a majority of the people actually agreed to go ahead and secede from the crown. I think it was 30%, 33%. It wasn't the majority. But he's trying to equate the anti-federalists, the people who oppose the U.S. Constitution, the national government, which is in contradiction to the standing articles of the Confederation, which formed a union, a league of friendship. He's trying to equate that party with the loyalists who, by the way, said, no, we are all Englishmen. We all share a common identity. Under whom? The crown. So it's... John Jay is going, no, these guys are the bad guys. They're like the loyalists. They're like the people telling us we share an identity, but we share an identity and we're one national people. It's just so blazingly ironic or hypocritical. I haven't read enough of his work. I haven't read enough about him to make the determination if he's being wicked and conniving here, or if he's just genuinely incompetent and ignorant. They considered that the Congress was composed of many wise and experienced men, that being convened from different parts of the country. Is it a country or a union, Jay? They brought with them and communicated to each other a variety of useful information, that in the course of the time they passed together in inquiring into and discussing the true interests of their country, is it a country or a union, they must have acquired very accurate knowledge on that head, that they were individually interested in the public liberty and prosperity, and therefore that it was not less their inclination than their duty to recommend only such measures as, after the most mature deliberation, they really thought prudent and advisable. Well, it really doesn't matter how advisable or prudent they think it is. If it doesn't comply with the Articles of the Confederation at the time, doesn't matter. It's null and void, and it's not legally binding. These and similar considerations then induced the people to rely greatly on the judgment and integrity of the Congress, and they took their advice notwithstanding the various arts and endeavors used to deter them from it. But if the people at large had reason to confide in the men of that Congress, few of whom had been fully tried or generally known, still greater reason have they now to respect the judgment and advice of the Convention, for it is well known that some of the most distinguished members of that Congress, who have been since tried and justly approved for patriotism and abilities, and who have grown old in acquiring political information, were also members of this convention and carried into it their accumulated knowledge and expertise. So don't worry at all what's going on at the convention, because it's mainly comprised of individuals who were in the Congress of 1774 that you willfully supported when seceding from the crown. It is worthy of remark that not only the first, but every succeeding Congress, as well as the late convention, have invariably joined with the people in thinking that the prosperity of America depended on its union. Union or country? Jay, is it a union or a country? To preserve and perpetuate it was the great object of the people in forming that convention. No, not remotely. It wasn't. The convention, the Constitution, the Articles of Confederation were not to preserve themselves. It was to secure and protect liberty, not preserve the Union, to protect liberty. And preserving the Union is not necessarily a prerequisite to securing and protecting liberty. And it is also the great object of the plan with which the convention has advised them to adopt. To preserve and perpetuate it was the great object of the people informing that convention, and it is also the great object of the plan which the convention has advised them to adopt. With what propriety, therefore, or for what good purposes, are attempts at this particular period made by some men to depreciate the importance of the Union? Or why is it suggested that 3 or 4 confederacies would be better than one? I am persuaded in my own mind that the people have always thought right on this subject, and that their universal and uniform attachment to the cause of the Union rests on great and weighty reasons, which I shall endeavor to develop and explain in some ensuing papers. They who promote the idea of substituting a number of distinct confederacies in the room, which is how it is laid out right now, and was laid out then, of the plan of the convention, seem clearly to foresee that the rejection of it would put the continuance of the Union in the utmost jeopardy. Again, the Union was created for the benefit of the states, not vice versa. That certainly would be the case, and I sincerely wish that it may be as clearly foreseen by every good citizen that whenever the dissolution of the Union arrives, America will have reason to exclaim in the words of the poet, "Farewell, a long farewell to all my greatness." Good grief, talk about top-tier fear-mongering and total, I don't know if it's delusion, if it was malice, or if it was ignorance. I'll be sure to do some more research on John Jay. I've been mainly studying individuals like George Mason, Thomas Jefferson, Alexander Hamilton, Patrick Henry, James Madison, but I'll be sure to do some further research into John Jay, because it's been a minute since I've read that, and that was just horrible. He kept interchanging, or trying to interchange union and nation and country, and you have to choose one or the other. But hopefully that information helped out, not only in understanding the perspective of the founders when writing and drafting and preparing the U.S. Constitution, but exactly what the debate was going on and the topics that were at hand during the convention, and recently after the, in quotes, ratification of the U.S. Constitution. And of course, with this series, we're going to continue reading through the Federalist Papers, because it's going to be very important understanding the context and the historical founding, not only for the U.S. Constitution, but the principles and the ideas that we at large champion to be the foundational reasons for the Union, for our states, and for the establishment that the founders, that our ancestors, that our predecessors put in place. And of course, understanding this will be supplementary to understanding the U.S. Constitution, and understanding the U.S. Constitution is absolutely imperative in the ever-longing, ever-looming fight that the ever-growing hostile lawfare state is waging. And it's not a matter of if, but when that state comes to harass you, your family, or your property, that I want you to be thoroughly equipped and thoroughly capable of defending yourself against any barrage or any attack. So if you have any questions at all, verbiage questions, history questions, please post them in the comments, because the entire point of the Calhoun School of Law in these lectures is for your benefit, and I'd rather serve that purpose exceptionally than insufficiently. So if you have any questions at all, or if you have any topics you'd like me to cover in a future lecture, please post them in the comments. All right, so let's go ahead and wrap it up on number 2. The next lecture is going to be Federalist Papers number 3, or the Federalist Paper number 3, unless an emergency topic comes up or one of you suggest a topic that you would like me to cover in place of number 3. Regardless, number 3 is going to be coming soon, and this series will continue because, of course, as I've explained, it's beneficial to know the context, the history, and the background of the governing documents. All right, so my name is Caleb Glick. I'm a certified paralegal here in the great state of Texas with the Calhoun School of Law to bring you a lot of information plenty of bad folks would rather you not have. Let's go ahead and wrap it up on Federalist Papers number 2. I will see you in the next lecture, regardless if it's Federalist Paper number 3 or an emergency topic. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and until that next lecture, I bid you that wonderful and happy-filled farewell.